as we jump into the notes on page number 3, we are going to be way down here at the bottom on 2.4 absolute equations. Happy spooky month, everybody. We are into October already, and a mere couple of weeks from being done with first quarter. So, absolute value equations. Here is the biggest thing you need to know with these, and remember, we're going to create 2 equations on every single one of these. So you see absolute value. Automatically, we're going to have 2 separate things going on. So why 2, and how are they going to be different? Okay, let me answer the first question first. With absolute value, it's a distance. If you've ever known someone or been in the car with somebody when you've been going somewhere, when you drive, the little odometer telling you how many miles your car has gone keeps moving forward. So let's say you drive to a friend's house. More mileage tracks in. So then if you go back to your house, if you drive in reverse, does the odometer go backwards? No, we're still moving ahead. So that distance creates 2 separate values. That's what we're going to do here. So here's how this works. For the first equation, you literally just copy what you see, but do not put the absolute value bars in there to do what we need to do. You need something? No pack or anything? A pencil? I can do that. I can handle that. We can make that happen. Once we get the first one situated, we can solve it, or we can just write the second one. So we'll go ahead and write that here. And the only thing that is going to be different when I get to the second one is I'm going to make the answer negative. That's going to get me my equal distance from my 2 answers that I'm looking for. And once I split that in 2, we're going to solve the 2 equations that are there that are only going to be 1 or 2 steps, and we're going to be done with them. So, since I want to get x by itself, yeah, we're going to do the opposite of adding 4, which would be to subtract in this case. As I've mentioned a lot lately, if you're not sure on the positive negatives, do 1 of 2 things. Either think about money. Hey, I had $3 in my pocket. I went to the store and I spent $4. Ooh, we got a budget better. I'm $1 behind. Or literally just punch it into your calculator. 3 minus 4. There it is. Okay. Second one, same thing. The nice thing about these is that whatever step you do on the first one, you're going to do the same step on the next one. But again, be cautious. If I was already $3 in the hole, and I went and I borrowed 4 more, now I owe 7. All of a sudden it doesn't become positive. We're not multiplying. And I get my 2 answers. So nothing bad. So for each of these, again, as long as the absolute value is by itself when you start, and most of the time it will be, your job is going to be the same. Copy it without the bars the first time. Okay? We are never, ever going to change what's inside the bars. Okay? We only change the answer and make it negative. Okay? So, again, once we have it set into 2 equations, the goal becomes to get the x value alone. How am I going to undo the minus 1? We're going to add it. Now this time we do have one more step. We've got to undo the multiply, which would be to divide. But again, here's the positive about these. You're like, but I got to do 2 equations for everyone. That's true, but also once I have the first one done, the model is there already. Undo the minus with plus. Again, watch your signs. They matter. I owe somebody $7. I pay him 1 back. Now I only owe him 6. And I keep doing my opposites. Multiply and divide are opposites. Add and subtract are opposites. And we work them through that way. Okay? However, with your absolute value equations, occasionally you're not going to have them alone at the start. And we're going to have one step we got to do before we get into our splitting. So, over to page 4 in the notes we go for that problem spot, possibly. Make sure I get, again, things labeled as I go so I know where to look for the help later if I need it. What happens if the absolute value is not alone when I start? You cannot split these right away. You will run into problems. So my first goal has to be to get the absolute value part by itself first. So, right now I'm multiplying it by 3. I do not want to distribute. That would take longer. What's the opposite of multiplying by 3? Divide by 3. So I'm going to do that to both sides. On this side, it just cancels out the 3. That's its whole job, just to get it where that is now alone. Once that's alone, now I can do what I did in the first couple that we did. Now I can split it into 2. First one, copy everything exactly the same except we don't have the bars anymore. So 2x minus 13 equals 5. Leave it be. The second equation, we copy everything until we get to the answer portion, at which point we change the sign of the answer and we make it negative. Everything from here on with these 2 problems is what we do for any regular equation. The goal, the x alone. Do the opposite of whatever you see. So I'll plus my 13 to undo the minus. And get my answer, because the opposite of multiply is to divide. And again, the nice thing is, once I've done the first one, I see what the 2 steps are that I have to do, so I'm not going to have to think about it a whole lot. I'm going to plus the 13, just like we did in the first. And since we're multiplying by 2, we're going to divide by 2, just like we did in second. So always check your first step before you get rolling with these too far to make sure you've got that part set. Here, yep, I want that alone, but it's not alone yet. What one step do I have to do to get it alone this time? Subtract 2, because that plus 2 is not in the bars, and I want it out of there. Okay, again, I won't have to do this every time. Once that's alone, once all I see on one side is the bars, we're ready to split it up. Again, just copy on the first one. Second one, copy everything until you get to the answer, and then change the sign. And now we go back to regular old algebra opposites. Opposite of -3 is to plus. We get fortunate this time. We only got to do one step. That's nice. And whatever steps I do on the first one, I do on the second. And I get that set. Now again, and I know I'm a broken record, you need to keep these out because not all, most of the ones you do are going to be almost carbon copies of these. And this is like your instruction manual that you're following along. So what do I mean? Okay, let's look at what we're going to be looking at for practice today. So the practice is on page 3 over to 4, okay, in this new part 2 packet we have. And those first 6 problems are all like the first 2 problems that we have here. The only thing I would say is a possible difference is if you look at number 1 and number 4, you're like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, okay, if I copy that, so I got my 2 equations here. If I copy that, Hardy, there's like nothing to solve. It just says x equals 3. Okay, sounds good to me. Well, then on the second one, I'm supposed to just change the sign to negative, right? Yep. So wait, that one's done too? It is. We wish they were all that way, right? But the other 5 that are up there, or at least the other 4, here on over, are all exactly like the first 2 examples we did. Once you get down to the bottom half of the sheet, when you get down to level 2, when we get down to some of the problems, and now there's other stuff going on, plus, multiply by a negative, add. Those are the ones where we're going to use the examples on page 4. Because now, again, same types of things. You've got the blueprint right here to do the next 4. And you also have the answers at the bottom to help you check as you go. One last thing to play with here. And I've mentioned this on some other sheets where we've put the levels. The next 3 here, okay, 11, 12, and 13, these are purposefully kind of tricky because you're not only going to have to do 1 step to get your bars alone, you're going to have to do 2. So let's say we do 12. You're like, okay, my goal is to get that absolute value, that set of bars set right there. But I got this and this in the way, so what do? We're always going to do on problems like this, okay? We're always going to do the plus or minus part first if we have to do that. And then we're going to do any multiply or divide second. The reason for that is it's going to make life easier on us. Okay? If you always do the add or subtract first and the multiply or divide second, it's going to be simpler. So, here, I see we're multiplying by 4. I see we're subtracting 5. We're going to do the subtracting. We're going to get rid of that first. So we're going to undo the minus 5 one time to each side only. We're never going to do it more than once. The 4 is still here. And then we're not alone here yet. We've got to undo the multiply by 4. Then we finally have made it. The bars are now alone, and we're ready to split it in 2. And luckily for us, it's only going to be a one-step equation, so it's not really this bad. Copy it the first time. And the second time, the only thing that changes is the answer turns into a negative. Everything else we do, no different from what we've been doing. I want to get x alone. So I undo the plus 9, we minus it. Is it a bit tedious at times? Yes. Not going to lie to you. It is. But if you really are honest with yourself, the steps aren't really that bad when you take your time and you have the examples of them to use. Okay? I'll tell you in advance before I say one last thing on the bottom review problems. 14, I would like you to think about, but if you don't get 14, do not panic. Don't worry about it, okay? It's just, again, a higher order level thinking question. You're like, wait, we get 2 answers for all of them. There's a way you can only get 1? There is. There's one way that you might only get 1 answer. But I'm going to let you ponder that a little. And then the last thing I will say down here on the bottom, reminder, whenever you see proportions, equations with x plus or minus something, you want those parentheses so when you go to cross multiply, you're set. Or when you see this and you go, oh yeah, that's right. This time I can't cross multiply yet because there's still stuff here. I'm going to get you to this point. Then just with a little reminder, you always multiply what's on the bottom of your fraction times what's ever left over here. These are regular cross multiply. These, we just kind of do this, and we go on our way. But that one is a little different. A little bit different. Why we keep seeing them, so we kind of get used to them and kind of normalize that. And like, yeah, we can do that. And again, the answers are on the bottom. Let's try and help out. So to wrap, we're wrapped as far as the lesson goes. But reminder, if you are missing, like, Hardy, where are you going? Oh, I'm going all over the place here. If you are missing any of the notes that we have done for unit number 2, okay, I have blank copies in the back. If you come on the regular stream of Classroom, every one we have done up until now is up here. So if you need them, get them from there. If you're gone and you need help, okay, you always can come into the lesson plans. And actually, I shouldn't bring up this one because I don't have this stuff up yet. I'll have it up today. But you can always come on here. Let's say you missed Friday with the first part. You always can click on this and it'll take you to the video of me doing the lesson. You can get the notes. You can hear me say it again. You can work through it. If you're doing a retake on something and you go to the quiz preview, you can listen to it. You can go through it. You can get some help that you need that way too. And I can help too. So keep working at it. Keep working hard. The answer key is up front, and I will get the actual answer key out to you here momentarily as well. And